Hi, everybody, and welcome to Things in My Head. I'm Angel, your host. So we're continuing with our month of love in February, and this is the last week that we're going to be talking about this. Now, I have to apologize to everybody because you guys have not heard my voice for 3 weeks. And the reason why is because I've been sick. And I didn't think that you really wanted to hear me coughing and blowing my nose and all of that kind of stuff on the air. So I just opted to go ahead and just do a blog. So if you haven't gone to the blog, it's at www.thingsinmyheadblog.com. Go there and take a look at the last 3 weeks of blog posts because we've been talking about 50 ways to say I love you. And we've had a list of 12 ways each week. Now, this week is going to be our last list of 12 ways to say I love you. And we've kind of had a little bit of a theme each week. So when you go to the blog, you'll see the theme and you'll get the hang of it. Because this week, we're going to be talking about sharing the love with, are you ready? Dun, 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 yourself. Yep. We can love everybody all we want. We can try to share the love with our neighbors, try to share the love online. But if we don't love ourselves, it's just not going to stick. So what I did was I called up a good friend of mine. Her name is Heather Love, and she happens to be a child and adolescent therapist in Baldwin County, Alabama. Now, she's very good at her job. She actually used to go to schools in the area, and she will talk about their self-esteem. And even, I've heard her even say that she talks to them about dating and things like that and what to expect and how to conduct yourself and how to kind of combat some of the problems that can happen in that scenario. We're going to be talking to this lady right after this. Hi, Sarah. Just a trim today?
Cut it off. Cut it all off.
Oh, no. What's going on?
I have to pull my hair back for work. And I love my long hair. But I have tried everything. I'm so frustrated. I just don't know what else to do.
Isabella Design.
Who?
Here, let me show you on my tablet. IsabellaDesign.etsy.com. The creative, functional hair jewelry that stays put. They're experts at manipulating heavy wires and metal into beautiful hair slides that not only stay in your hair all day, but look really good doing it.
Wow, they are beautiful. And with this price, I can order 2 of them.
So, are we cutting it all off?
No way. I just ordered from Isabella Design. Shampoo and blow dry only, please.
You got it. IsabellaDesign.etsy.com. So I'm here with Heather Love from Baldwin County Mental Health. Hi, Heather. How you doing?
I'm great. How are you doing, Angel?
I'm doing wonderful. Heather, you know, I have followed what you do for the last couple of years, and amazing, amazing things. You have been allowed to go into the schools and talk to the kids.
Yeah, I started this process 3 years ago, actually this past January, working for a domestic violence shelter called the Lighthouse here in Baldwin County, and ended up becoming the prevention educator. So my main focus was to actually go into schools all across Baldwin County, and I got to go in and talk to kids about bullying and how not to let what other people say affect you, self-esteem, and also abuse, what abuse is with our girls as well as our boys, because of course, you know, it does happen sometimes to our boys too.
Right.
But how to respect yourself way before you start dating, because that if you don't respect and love yourself when you start dating, you're definitely setting yourself up to be a victim.
Oh, I think probably all of my listeners can sit back going, you know, if I had known that way back when, I would have never done da-da-da-da-da, or I would have never married da-da-da-da-da, or this wouldn't have happened in my marriage.
Yes.
Let's talk about at that point, when you're a teenager, when you're in that adolescent years. And I know that for a lot of my listeners, it's going to be talking to their kids. Maybe, you know, they have teenagers in the house now, and this is a really good way to start a conversation with your kids about this. What do we say to them? You know, how do we talk to them about those issues?
Yeah, I try to use everything on television. You know, when you hear something on television happening, you know, even if it's with the Justin Bieber issue, I try to take those with my 2 teenagers as well as the kids in school, anything that's up to date and present, and apply it as a life lesson. You know, what would you do in this situation? What do you think about this situation? And it gets them talking.
Well, give us a scenario.
Well, I mean, especially with, I know we've had several cases where teen boys had been in trouble with the law, had ended up, you know, going to court, raping a girl, and it starts this kind of whirlwind where, you know, the girl had already had sex with the boy, and so it's not rape, and it starts kind of a debate almost where is it the girl's fault, is it the boy's fault, you know. So anytime that you can have that discussion with your child, because I'm blown away at how many girls, when I do discuss this with them, at how many girls will actually say, well, that's not rape because I had sex with him last month. And they honestly believe that, once you've given permission once, that that's okay for this boyfriend to take advantage of them all the time and talk to them mean and disrespectful. And a lot of our girls, again, it begins in the home, and they're not teaching this stuff in school. So, anytime you can tell your child, you don't deserve to be talked to this way, and again, sometimes you do have that example set negative in the home. And these kids, we do have to really work a lot with. But if you're in a great family, and your family is talking about what's going on television, the kids are already listening to it.
Right.
I encourage the parents to Google, and I encourage the parents to get on Yahoo News and get on the entertainment stuff. This is what your kids are listening to, and you can actually kind of score some points with your kids if you know who Justin Bieber is or who the latest ad is, and you know what's going on. And, they're like, what? And so, that's always good because the kids are already listening to it. So the more you educate yourself on it, the more they're going to be looking at you.
Yeah, and I actually did a little surfing this afternoon and looking at the role models. Now, I don't have teenage kids anymore. My kids are well past that. However, I do have grandchildren, and looking at these models of what these kids have as role models today is just unbelievable to me.
There's not a lot.
Well, what they consider role models, I'm going to pick on one that I know that there are women in my family who love this lady. I don't particularly care for her. Now, she's a great singer. She's a beautiful woman. But Beyonce, she's out there scantily dressed and in public. And let's face it, the woman admits to being, allowing a demon to take over when she's on stage to perform. This is something that she freely admits. The way that she moves, the way that she talks and things like that on stage, just the whole role model that she portrays on stage. And these young girls want to be like that. And let's just not even think about the self-esteem issues that's going to hurl at them because they don't look like Beyonce. But I can't even get past the fact that these girls want to be like that so much that they're willing to do just about anything.
Yes. And it definitely starts at home. The more kids, and right now I'm working in schools. I'm doing more one-on-one counseling with the mental health system. And I have so many girls now that are cutting. It's stemming from this low self-esteem, and the way that they're controlling is by being able to cut. That's the one thing that they have control over. And I try to tell them, in as loving a way as I can that, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 20 years from now, you're not going to think about middle school or high school or how ugly these twits were to you, but you're going to have that scar to remind you. And those scars, you don't want those there. You don't want those people to have that much control over you. So I try to approach it in a way to where they can kind of realize that anytime they're hurting themselves, either by words or by, self-harm in any way, they're actually letting these people win. They're letting the negative stuff in the world take over and destroy them.
Giving them power.
Oh, yeah. And that's not what we want. We don't want that at all. And it is hard. It's hard to look on TV and think that, you're supposed to look like that, even for women, but especially for adolescents they don't know who they are. They're still kind of this, and my mom wants me to be this, and dad wants me to be that, and I don't even know what I want to be. They're under so much stress that self-esteem is just so damaging.
I did talk to a lady here not too long ago, and we were talking about young women wanting to be like Beyonce. Her daughter had mentioned, well, I want to grow my hair like Beyonce's, and I want to dye it that color and all of that. Her mom laughed, and she said, well, honey, she said, that color is not necessarily your color. That's her color. But why don't you just dye your hair blue like Katy Perry? And we'll be all right.
Yes. Yeah, there are some colors that are not for everyone. I learned that the hard way, trying to go red. It was not for me. So,
but that just seems like a silly little thing to pick on. But really, it all goes back to that self-esteem thing. When your child comes to you and says, I want to be like somebody else, or I want to start dressing like somebody else, or I want to have plastic surgery. That's a big thing now with teenagers. They want to have plastic surgery. And I was just astonished at the numbers of young women wanting to have breast enhancements at the age of 16, or younger.
Yeah.
It's all a self-esteem issue.
And it's sad.
It really is.
Yes. And it begins with that emotional, how much do you love yourself? And it, you know, goes back, if you don't love yourself, and some of us won't necessarily get it in the home. You know, I have 7 younger brothers, so I heard the word ugly more than anything because they're brothers. That's what brothers do. And, you know, then you go to school and you've heard that, and I was kind of a gangly. I mean, I was a weird-looking kid. I mean, I definitely never really thought of myself as being a pretty girl. I was a tomboy, and so I wasn't the prissy girl. And sometimes when girls don't fit the perfect mold they think we're supposed to look like or act like a certain way, you know, it does. And I battled that even as an adult, and I would really hurt myself more by looking in the mirror and saying negative talk to myself. Like, you know, the other people are already doing it, but now I'm doing it.
Right. That brings up a really good point. So what do we do to not even start the cycle to begin with?
I mean, to me, what I try to tell my young kids, and again, I tell them what I wish somebody had told me. I'm definitely, as an adult, still battle with this, but I try to get them to write down 3 things they do not like about themselves. But just put 3 things down. And the sad thing is they can do it like super fast. Like they'll write and they're like, can I write more? And then I'll go, well, write 3 things you like about yourself down. And they struggle with it. And that's really sad. And I try to turn that around to say, okay, but look how quick you were for your faults. But I see this in you. You know, you're musically talented. You've got a heart. I mean, you see things in people. You know when people need you to come and give them a hug. You know, you're artistic. You know, I see this in you, and I barely know you, but you don't see it in you. And I think sometimes it takes another person telling someone that to kind of open their eyes, because all we hear is the negative.
Right.
And they're going to hear the negative at school. And if they're hearing it at school and then coming home and hearing it, it's like a double whammy.
Right. Right.
You know, and so that part is sad.
Well, we did a show a little while back about bullying, and we had the founder of Kid Power on, and she was talking about some of those things, you know, that happen in school, the way the kids bully are, you know, it can be verbal. It can be a real verbal abuse that happens. And honestly, I got to tell you guys, I remember verbal abuse that happened to me from other students from when I was in junior high school, and I am well over the age of 40. Okay. So you remember those things if they hurt you enough. And they really do affect you in your adult years, because I remember, because of some of the things that those girls would say to me, I avoided certain things. You know, I didn't step out and do things that I could have done. I was a really good singer, and I wouldn't step out on stage maybe as much because I had those old tapes of those girls in the back of my head saying, you're not good enough, you're ugly, nobody wants to hear you, go away. You know, those kind of things. And yet, here I am on the radio. I'll sing to people. They don't even see me, and I prefer that. But when people don't see me, I have no problem. I have no problem finding my voice. But when people see me, that's when I get very camera shy. I kind of step in the background, and I don't want to be seen. But yeah, that can affect you for the rest of your life. So.
Oh, it does. I mean, I look back and I remember never doing things that now I look back, I wish that I had tried, but it was because of hearing you're going to fail, there's no way, you're not going to ever do it, that, you know, it kind of blocks us. But again, we have the power to overcome that. It's just very hard, especially as females, for us, because we really don't hear a lot of that. We don't hear a lot of the, you know, you don't have to look like this person, and you're great with what you are. I was constantly made fun of because I talked a lot. And, you know, as a younger kid, we didn't get the ADHD label and we didn't get the medicine to help us. We were the kid that talked too much. And it wasn't until I was like a young mother, I had my pastor's wife come up and say, you know, you do have a gift. And I'm like kind of laughing, you know, I'm like, yeah, okay. And she's like, it's the gift of gab. Well, of course, you know, I'm laughing or whatever. But, you know, she said it is a gift, because you have to think about it. You can make someone feel comfortable. You can just go up to them and just talk to them. And I'm like, yeah, but that was never a positive thing growing up. And it wasn't until she told me that I was like, oh, so that is something positive. You know, we all have those characteristics, but sometimes it does take someone telling you that that's a positive to kind of overweigh it and change it, because we all have that.
And I think, too, sometimes you have to grow into your gifts, because maybe the gift of gab is not a great thing when you're in school. But, you know, when you're in college or you're, you know, as a young adult or something like that, you can grow into that gift, and it can be used quite effectively.
And especially with transparency. I think kids they need adults to be transparent and honest with them, instead of
How do you do that?
I do it a lot by just telling them, your parents love you. They may not show it in the best way. A lot of it is a learned behavior. How they were raised, definitely how I was raised affects how the adult I am. It's a cycle if we don't break it. But I try to be as transparent with them. I don't have all the answers. Your parents don't.
Right.
They've made mistakes. I make mistakes as a mom every day. And, I was a stay-at-home mom for 16 years going back to school. And, my kids that was my job. That was something that, we made sacrifices for. My kids were it. It was like, God, help me be the best mom. And you're still going to make mistakes. Right. And I've tried to be open not only with my own children, but the other kids I come in contact with that, what, your parents are going to make mistakes. You make mistakes, your parents, you got to give them a break. Y'all don't come with instruction books. No matter how many you read, every one of y'all is going to be different. So kids, I think really when I ask them, they always ask me to come back and talk. And I'm like, why do y'all like me? Because, I don't know why. And most of them will say, it's because you're honest with us. You're not trying to be our friend. Mm-hmm. You call us out when we're wrong. And I do. I do out of love, but I'll call them out, But at the same time, I'm being honest with them. And I think as teenagers, they're not going to tell you, but they really and truly, that's something that they are going to listen to. They're going to hear you say they're beautiful. They're going to hear you say that's a wonderful gift, that you have this, either it's a spiritual gift or if it's, a physical gift. They're listening to you. They may not acknowledge it, but I promise you they're listening to that at home. So keep doing it.
Yeah, I think that's what's so hard as parents is because you think that just because they're your child, they're not listening to you. But they are. They are in the back of their mind somewhere, and it is going to come back later on. And I'll give you a little secret into a little bit of my life. Right now, I have one of my children that really blames me for a lot of their childhood. And, like you said, parents, you make mistakes. And I was a single parent for a lot of years, and I did, things that I probably shouldn't have at the time. But even after I got my act together, it was like all of the negative outweighed any of the positive. And so now this child is mad at me. But I know that because they've got their own child now, and it's going to be a situation of as that child grows up, they're going to see that, hey, you know what? I'm not perfect, and neither was my mom. And maybe I was a little hard on her, and it may be years. It may not be. I hope it's not. But
I can tell you it will be. It will be. I was the same way. I mean, I forgave and,
right.
It wasn't really until I was a parent that I grasped the totality of being a parent. And I had forgiven, but then it was just kind of it was almost like a release. And so I was able to go back and say, thank you for doing this and thank you for doing that. Nobody grows up in a perfect home. There's no such thing. And I think that sometimes we set our kids up for disaster and for horrible things happening to them by thinking that we all have to be perfect parents, because we're not. And I think that transparency of other parents helping other parents and being honest and saying, look, I don't know what to do with this kid. I've done everything. I'm going to love them no matter what, but I need help. That was my first, that's when I started becoming like a stronger parent by just saying, I don't know what to do. And I need help. Right. And I had 4 moms go, here you go, let me help you.
Yeah, especially if you have special needs kids too. That can be such a difficult situation to handle on your own. You need help. And there's so many different organizations. We'll have them listed on our blog at www.thingsinmyheadblog.com, because we want to talk about organizations such as MOPS, Kid Power, and, all of these organizations that will help you as a parent to deal with what your children are going through, or even just as a support group for parents, because it's really so important to help to build your child's self-esteem right from the get-go. And sometimes even in trying to build a healthy self-esteem, it backfires, because you can build a child so much, you can build up their self-esteem so much that when life comes at them and hits them, they're like, wait a minute, you didn't prepare me for this, and now I'm mad at you. That can happen. So we want to prepare you with the rest of this interview. We're going to be back right after this talking to Heather Love, who is a child and adolescent therapist. We're going to talk to her a little bit about being an adult and having to look in the mirror right after this.
This is Amy.
Hello.
She was the most disorganized person in the world.
It's okay. I'm okay.
Poor Amy. she could never find anything.
Now where did I put that?
Until that is, she found renewyourspace.com.
Wow, renewyourspace.com.
At renewyourspace.com, Amy learned how to organize her pantry,
Artichokes? When did I buy that?
her drawers,
Oh, look, clean underwear.
her whole life.
Woohoo!
Now Amy is the most organized person in the world.
Thanks, renewyourspace.com.
Hey, we're back talking about loving yourself. We're going to be talking with Heather Love, who, like I said, she works for Baldwin County, Alabama, mental health. She's able to go into the school. She's able to talk to adolescents and teenagers. And she's here on our show today to not only tell us as parents how to talk to our kids and how to prepare our kids as far as self-esteem issues when they start school, but she's also going to help us today with how do we look at ourselves in the mirror after we've gone through all of that. Because, Heather, just from talking to you for this few minutes, I've got issues.
We all have issues.
When you look in the mirror and you think, I really hate my nose, or I really hate my hair, or, those things you can kind of deal with now as an adult. But what about the things that when you're looking in the mirror and you say, I don't like what you're doing to yourself, or I don't like who you've become, I don't like what you're doing, how you're acting, I don't like who you're with. How do you stop yourself from basically just talking yourself into a depression or talking yourself into old tapes that are going to come back later on to haunt you?
And the sad thing is that they will, and I tell this with my adolescents all the time because I don't want them to think that there's such thing as a quick fix. There's not a happy pill. There's not a quick fix. I have anger issues. I have 7 brothers and we've fought, I'll admit. But again, when you have a lot of siblings, when you grow up in different areas, you're going to have things that you're still going to battle with. And, I am quick to anger, but it's not a godly thing and it's not a good characteristic. So I still have to work on that. I recognize if I'm in a situation where I feel my body tensing up. Recognizing what sets you off as an adult is key, especially if you're a parent. Most of us can control ourselves in the workplace, but it's when we're a parent that we sometimes don't.
Right.
And so kind of recognizing that, taking the opportunity, we need timeouts as moms and dads do. I mean, we do. Adults need a timeout sometimes more so than the child does. And if you're about to say something out of anger, being able to take that timeout and walk away. But I do. I mean, there's many times especially with dealing with what I deal with, I hear a lot of, bad stuff. And, even today, I ended up with a migraine this morning, stress induced, I know, and I mentally was not in a good place. And I just, I prayed on the way to work and I ended up just taking a sick day today. I needed that break of everything kind of piling up on me because I knew it was coming. And so we luckily live by the beach. So I drove on down there and just kind of hung out, just sitting on the beach. That's my happy place. Every one of us have a happy place. I tell kids all the time, if you want to punch something, if you get angry, get you a punching bag. Do kickboxing. Don't kick or hit. There's nothing wrong with anger. There's nothing wrong with being angry with yourself sometimes because we recognize things we might want to change. But recognizing it, and when we do something that is wrong, we've got to seek that apology. We've got to go to that person and say, hey, I'm sorry. I'm not perfect. Forgive me.
What if that person is yourself?
That's the hardest person, I think, to forgive. I mean, there's lots of things about, I'm 43 and there's some days I'm like, why am I still battling with this? I know better. But again, it's that self-talk, and we have to make sure that we are making a positive impact on ourselves. We start that day off. Music is my thing. That's, I love music. And I start my day off every morning listening to a few songs by Mandisa because she's, my singer. I love Mandisa, but her songs are so powerful. And when I listen to that, music can change you. It changes everything. And so I know in the mornings I'm not the best mom. I know, that mornings are not my time. But I know that I need to listen to something or I read scripture in the morning. I've got to have that positive feed going into my brain and telling myself, you know what, it's okay. You're probably going to make a mistake today. It's going to be okay. But to look at yourself and expect to be perfect, we're setting ourselves up for disaster as grown-ups, and we just can't do that.
Yeah, I think it kind of goes back to the role models that we programmed ourselves to believing that we're supposed to be like. And guys, everybody's perfect on TV. And that's just the way it is. You just can't be that way. Your troubles for yourself don't go away like that because, like I said, you have old tapes that will play over and over and over again. And this self-bashing that we do can just really affect every area of our lives. It can affect our relationships, our work relationships. It can affect our jobs, period. It can affect, our neighborhood relationships. I've had neighbors that I knew that they were in abusive relationships, and what happened is it carried over into the neighborly relationships. Nobody in the neighborhood liked that person, even though they were the victim in the relationship. But it was because of the way they treated everybody because they were getting abused. You got to recognize the signs of the behavior that you have so that when you look in the mirror, you are not self-bashing yourself. You can look in the mirror and say, you know what, today I'm going to overcome her, Mandisa.
Yeah.
I love that song. But yeah, you can look in the mirror and you can say, I'm going to be an overcomer today. And even if you're not a Christian, find your happy place. Find those things that are positive in your life and just really focus on those things because everybody has something positive, right, Heather?
Absolutely. And breathing, great technique. The deep breathing, whether you do yoga or just do the breathing, science backs us up on that. I can't preach to my kids. Of course, it's, there's that separation, but a happy place is a happy place. It's wherever you are. And one thing I really tell a lot of grown-ups as well as my kids, one day this will pass. And the great thing is you're going to learn something. You get to choose to either decide to let your family and let your bad stuff define you, or you get to let that stuff make you so strong that you become some amazing, wonderful person because of the negative things you've been through. Because I firmly believe, that everything that happens to you, whether it's positive or negative, it can have a good outcome. I firmly believe it, and I walk that every day, and I try to tell the kids that power comes from within and from above, and you've got it within yourself to take this bad, horrible thing and turn it into something wonderful. And that's the glorious thing, is that we can all overcome that and be an amazing adult or an amazing child. And that's the glory of it.
And try to find some real life role models. Even as adults, we have role models. And I think it's just really important to find some real life role models. Like Heather's going to laugh when I tell her this, but one of my real life role models is my sister, Cindy. She's always been my hero. She's 10 years younger than I am. And we have been best friends since she was 2. And we've had our rocky moments up and down, but she's been my hero and my role model all my life because she's such a strong person. And even when she failed, she was able to turn around and look in the mirror and say, you know what? I'm not doing this anymore. I'm changing this. I'm going to become the type of person that God wants me to be. And she did.
No, I love Cindy myself. She is she's one of my mentors. I think we all need those, and she's definitely one of mine. So I hate she's so far away, but that's okay.
I know. She lives in Canada, y'all. As you guys know, I live in Texas. She lives in Canada. But yeah, find a role model like that in your life, that someone you can call up on the phone or text, Skype with, anything. If they live in another country, call them up and say, hey, I just need to talk to you. And we just need to be girlfriends for a second, or we just need to be best pals for a second because I just need some positive energy in my life because all of these things are happening and they're bombarding us. The world today is a scary, scary place. You think about how scary it is for you as an adult and just multiply that by 100 times because that's what your teen is going through. That's the scariness of the world that they live in because they have all of these different things that they have never dealt with before, all of a sudden bombarding them with hormones and bullying and school life and things that they don't even tell you about. And that's why we're glad to have people like Heather Love in this world who can go and be a positive force, be a positive role model in their life. You be a positive role model in their life too. We're going to put up on our website at www.thingsinmyheadblog.com the list of 12 ways to say I love you. And in those 12 ways, we're going to give you some reinforcement. I'm going to ask Heather for some different quotes that we can say not only to ourselves, but maybe to our teens, maybe to our kids, and help them through some of the self-esteem issues that they're having so that they can look in the mirror and say, I love you, even if it's just for a moment. Heather, thank you so much for being with us today on the show.
Thank you. I enjoyed it very much.
I learned a lot. So we're all going to be able to look in the mirror and say, I like you even, even if you don't love, you can like yourself on Facebook and you can like yourself in the mirror too. So I want to tell you about a positive role model. Right now, if you watch The Voice on NBC, I'm going to give you the name of a role model that you need to be watching. Her name is Carrie Lane. Now, Carrie is a really good friend of some of my family down in Alabama. She's from Citronelle, Alabama, and she is our girl. We are rooting for Carrie. She is a wonderful, wonderful girl. If you look at her biography online, she is a perfect role model. She's a young woman with a young family who is going to go far. And if you are looking for a role model for any of your kids, she's the girl. So Team Carrie, go all the way. We're going to see her go all the way to the end. Next month, we are going to be talking about cleaning up our lives. And I know that sounds really funny after having today's discussion, but really it's spring cleaning month. You know, everybody does it, and March comes and it feels like you got to clean out the closets and you got to clean out the car and maybe change your life a little bit. And we're going to be talking about changing your life a lot in March, okay? Maybe not every week, but yeah, mostly. We're going to be talking with people like Paul Dean, who is, as you know, our Rocky Mountain Oils expert. So he's going to be talking to us about cleaning out the medicine cabinet. I'm hoping to get some cancer survivors on the show because I really have for a long time wanted to talk about that. So breast cancer survivors, because that's been in the news as far as women are concerned. That's really been in the news a lot lately, and we want to approach that subject. So we're just going to be talking about changing our lives and cleaning things up a little bit in March. So don't miss us. We are now on iTunes. We are on TuneIn. We're on Stitcher Radio. And don't forget, we're on the iHeart affiliates. Join us any way you can. And, of course, at the blog, www.thingsinmyheadblog.com. We'll see you next week.